At this time, it is my honor to introduce Hartford Police Chief Jason Thody.
Welcome, and thank you all for being here to honor Detective Garten. I want to start by offering my deepest and most heartfelt condolences to Deb, Bob, Will, Kimber, Liam, Rory, and the rest of Bob's family. Thank you for sharing him with Hartford. He was only with us for 8 years, but his influence was immeasurable. I know there are no words that can console you, but please know that everyone, past, present, and future, who wears this uniform will always be here to support and comfort you. We will honor Bobby and never forget the good that he did, the way that he did it, and the sacrifice he made in service to our community. He was and always will be our hero. I want the members of our street crimes unit to stand up for just a minute and be recognized. We've heard their names already. And have heard some of the work that they do. While we all hurt as Hartford Police brothers and sisters, I am profoundly and uniquely sorry for your loss. I have watched you come together to honor Bobby and lift Brian up, and it is truly inspirational. Your camaraderie and dedication to each other during this tragedy are a testament to your love for Bobby. I know his family sees it as well. You're a tight-knit group, and this will weigh heavy on all of you. But you will rise above and continue to meet the challenges just like your teammate did, and we will all help and support you along the way. Thank you for what you do, and more importantly, how you go about doing it. Please be seated. To our entire HPD family, I can't begin to express how incredible you are. Police officers are unique. We see things no one should have to see, do things that few have the courage to do, and sacrifice things that even fewer would risk losing. Among those very special people who become police officers, Hartford police officers consistently rise above and are among the very best. While many of us sat with Brian and Bobby in the hospital, you were stepping out on calls, keeping the city safe. In the days since Bobby was taken from us, officers from all units, divisions, and ranks have stepped up to fill shifts, plan this incredible send-off, support the family and each other, and serve and protect our community. This week has been the most tragic and trying week our department has faced in decades, but you have shown that HPD is stronger than ever. That strength doesn't come from the loss of Bobby. It comes from the inspiration that he provided while he was with us. Bobby served with exceptional distinction and compassion, and he is looking down on you all with pride. That was Bobby's way, and you honor his memory every time you answer the bell. You're remarkable people doing God's work, and I'm honored to stand with you. I want to thank all the outside agencies that have supported us and the family over the last 10 days. There's too many to list, and we're forever in your debt. Bobby came to us 8 years ago, following in his father's footsteps. He immediately had an advantage. He was a second-generation Hartford police officer. I've spoken with many retired officers in the last week, most of whom served with Bobby's dad. I've heard the same thing over and over again. I remember Bobby when he was this big. As I listened to their stories, I couldn't help but think about how that influenced Bobby as he grew up. He and I looked up to many of the same people, me as a rookie cop and him as a growing boy. He had some of the very best field training officers in the business years before he even filled out an application. He was HPD long before he pushed through day one of that academy. Starting with his dad, continuing through Peter and the rest of Bob's HPD friends, I thank you for molding him into the man and officer he became. He was an inspiration to us because you were an inspiration to him. Bobby saw some difficult times in law enforcement. Last 4 years have been among the most challenging for police officers here and across the country. Calls for reform turned to hostility against the noblest profession in the land. I watched as our officers felt more and more unappreciated at a time when our community needed them more than ever. Our street crimes officers were walking the narrowest tightrope of any unit out there. They're charged with seeking out and disrupting the most dangerous offenders, those that are responsible for the violence that damages our community. That mission puts them directly in harm's way daily, but it also exposed them to criticism and personal liability in recent years. The easy thing for them to do would have been to step back and simply police less. We saw it happen in many communities, but Bobby and his team didn't do that. As the chief, I struggled to find a way to reassure them that they were still needed, wanted, still doing God's work while knowing that they could be the next news headline even if they didn't do anything wrong. So I called a meeting with them. I did my best to reassure them, but as I looked across the room, I could tell they still had doubts and concerns. All but one of them. One stood out, confidently smiling as I struggled to make my case. As we spoke about indemnification, consent searches, police oversight, he maintained a pleasant demeanor. I remember wondering, did this guy get his hands on a medical marijuana card during one of these vehicle searches? How can he be smiling? I came to understand that he was smiling because he loved his job. He believed in his team's mission to keep our community safe. He was smiling because if things got more demanding, he worked harder. That was Bobby's way. When I look to fill positions at the police department, I try to evaluate people from every angle and pick the person who's most likely to be successful, the ones most likely to exceed expectations. That's probably the same in other departments and in other professions. Sometimes the best people apply for the job and everything works out. Other times I must tap them on the shoulder and the transition is less voluntary. When a need arises, we have a responsibility to meet that need. If we pick the right person, they excel, even if it wasn't something they asked for or even wanted. I was fortunate enough to tap Bobby on the shoulder for several assignments that are significant to our department and our community, all of which he asked for. After looking at it from every angle, walk beat, FTO, Marine Division, and street crimes were all great fits for Bobby, the department, and the community, and he excelled in every one of those assignments. That was Bobby's way. There's no way to explain or rationalize what happened just after 10 p.m. on September 6th. The chain of events that led us here today is unfathomable. Being on the dividing line between north and south on two separate channels, the suspect making it through the first intersection on a red light at that speed. If the timing changes by less than a second, we're not all gathered here today. It's hard to comprehend and fair to ask why. Our faith tells us that God has a plan and a purpose for everyone. Scripture tells us that God will instruct his angels to watch over people, to guard his children. Psalm 91:11 reads, "For he will give his angels charge concerning you, to guard you in all your ways." We don't have to look far to see a need for angels in this world, but not just any angel. One that fits from every angle. One that is most likely to succeed, most likely to exceed expectations. If God is looking to tap someone on the shoulder to do the most demanding work and to face the most significant challenges in the toughest of times, he taps the guy who smiles confidently at adversity when no one else does. If God came and asked me for my best guardian to serve as an angel, to fix the broken and bruised world we live in, I tap Bobby on the shoulder. again. And this is what I believe happened on September 6th. This was not an assignment Bobby asked for, but he is, without question, the right guy for the job. His time serving with us here has ended, but his service to mankind has just begun. So here we are, honoring his memory and dealing with the pain of his absence, but we weren't left alone. Look around. His families, both blood and blue, have been left in a cradle of support. We have been left with the tools we need to get through this, and that is each other. In the last 10 days, his brothers and sisters have come up with several ways to honor Bobby. His locker will be retired with a glass door so we can see his uniform hanging ready for service. His unit number 133 will be heard today for the last time. But Bobby had a way about him that was infectious. I've mentioned it several times today, and we'll hear it more with every speaker. And that needs to be memorialized. He left us with a new standard as we move forward, which is simply Bobby's way. His love for his family and his fellow officers, his dedication to service, his courage, and his smile are all part of Bobby's way. To commemorate and memorialize the way Bobby lived and served, we are naming the Marine Division boat Bobby's Way. The boat will be dedicated to him, and a plaque with his likeness will be permanently affixed to the helm. He will be forever at the helm steering the ship. This is just one of many ways we honor him and make sure his example lives on. To Detective Bobby Garten, it was an honor for all of us to have served with you and a privilege to have known you. You left us far too soon, but you're answering a higher call. In time, we will understand and accept that truth. We love you and we miss you. Please watch over your fellow officers as they take up your post, cover your beat, and continue your noble work in your honor. Until we meet again.
At this time, Chief Thody will ceremoniously promote Officer Robert Garten to the rank of detective. He will present Bobby's father with Bobby's detective badge. Detail, tan hood. At ease, take seats.